Duel Commander. Competitive, fun, 1v1. So you're planning on trying out Duel Commander and you need help figuring out where to start. Well, this video is for you. Hello, my name is Chris and I'm here to let you know about all the commanders and the various archetypes that you can play and figure out what best suits you. Duel Commander often has very defined metas, with decks and commanders that are very popular options within their various archetypes. Let's start off with Aggro. Aggro's goal is to be aggressive and apply pressure on your opponents quickly to get the win. We want a fast-paced game where we deploy low-cost and efficient creatures accompanied by various spells that push our deck into victory. Red Deck Wins is the epitome of aggro and is a staple in the Duel Commander meta. The deck consists of low mana curve creatures that put pressure on your opponents fast and ends the games quickly. This is supplemented by all the burn that you play that act as removal or direct damage to secure the win. Feldon is currently the best mono-red commander in the format due to its low mana cost, hasty body, and its ability to be card advantage. And this is what sets Feldon apart from previous Red Deck Win commanders. Feldon himself lets you get that extra push that you need to dig for just enough burn to take out your opponent. Opponents will do their best to stabilize with removal and Glyphican effects, but thankfully, you have tools in your deck that counteract them and let you take the win before they can catch a break. Red Deck Wins is a great entry point for anyone who wants to join Duel Commander on a budget. It's also very beginner friendly. The goals of the deck is very straightforward and I highly recommend this to any new players who want to play more competitively. Boros is a great color pairing in aggro, helmed by the powerful partner pair of Yoshimaru Everfaithful and Bruce Starl. This deck is packed with synergies and value, having a strong focus on legendary matters because of Yoshi, but also getting to play an equipment package that is flexible and efficient. Your opponents will often take out Yoshi as they know that they cannot allow him to stick on board and grow. But that's fine, cause you have so many other threats that can impact the game and get you that win. Be wary of heavy control decks, as they want to drain you of your resources quickly as they do not want to get run over by your big doggo. However, your deck is also packed with card advantage engines and removal, so you're not gonna make it easy for them. If you ever plan on leveling up your skills and playing aggro, Yoshi Boros might be the deck for you. Tempo decks are very prevalent in the Duel Commander meta, with its focus on having a balance of aggression and disruption. Your goal is to establish an early board presence, apply consistent pressure, and keep your opponents off balance by preventing them from executing their game plan effectively. If this sounds like something right on your alley, try out Aragorn, King of Gondor. Jeskai has a strong tempo shell, with all its cheap and impactful threats and control magic. You often control the pace of the game by being able to drop a threat like True Name Nemesis and having it stick on board through your various counterspells and removal. Having card advantage in the form of Monarch attached to Aragorn lets you make sure you never run out of gas. And Aragorn having lifelink is a great way to stabilize when you find yourself on the back foot. Gearson is another commander who thrives when it comes to the tempo game. This is a low-to-the-ground deck with a Spellslinger sub-theme that is boosted by Gearson's static ability to add 2 damage to any stars you control that would deal exactly 1 damage. That means your pingers like Kessig Flamebreather and Thermo Alchemist are now packing a huge punch to your opponent's life total. And let's not forget that this also affects your creatures. 1/1 tokens that pop out of Loyal Apprentice and Young Pyromancer now can punch up to both your opponent's life and their creatures. All this upside is only possible with Gearson on the field, so you really want him out as much as possible to really maximize all your cards in your deck. Thankfully, if you are able to make Gearson stick on board, Ward 2 makes him much more difficult for your opponents to deal with. This deck is very focused on its game plan, and often makes it difficult to include card advantage engines, but it compensates with all its cantrips to dig through your deck. Our game plan is fast-paced but requires you to really think about the next steps both when it comes to your combat, using your burn spells and counter spells at the right moments. This deck becomes explosive out of nowhere and is perfect for anyone who loves Izzet and the Spellslinger playstyle. If you're looking for more versatile strategies, mid-range offers the best mix of efficient creatures, late game threats, and tons of interaction. These decks typically play cards that provide value at each stage of the game, allowing you to shift between defensive and offensive roles depending on the matchup. Slimefoot and Squee is a great example of a mid-range deck. Slimefoot and Squee is a cheap and efficient creature that has a powerful activated ability to bring back itself and another creature straight from the grave into the battlefield. This makes them valuable at any point in the game and ensures that you are getting as much value as you can from your creatures. If it wasn't obvious, Slimefoot and Squee deals a lot with its grave and has a heavy reanimator theme. There are so many synergies in this deck when it comes to maximizing your grave, both when it comes to Goyf effects and reanimation in general. This deck can be tuned to be more aggro and focus more on the value you're getting, being Enchant. You often want to ramp out your threats as they are your best bet to take over the game. But your opponent knows this as well, so they want to cut you off as early as possible. Your threats work more effectively in bigger volumes, so having a lot on board is most ideal for your game plan. And though board wipes can be very Grist is very unique, being a planeswalker in the command zone, but has a static ability that states it's only a planeswalker on the battlefield. This deck is best described as a toolbox. It is very flexible with its game plan, with options to ramp, reanimate, or even have lines to search through your deck to get the answer you need at the moment. Cards like Survival of the Fittest and Birthing Pod aid in this plan. She herself adds to this toolbox theme, having the ability to fuel your grave while adding to your board presence, being removal when necessary, and having a late game win con when your grave gets big enough. Contamination is also a very unique card in this deck, cause now you have your own Blood Moon. Don't worry about its downside though, as Grist can constantly provide a creature for you to sack. Though it struggles a bit against control, this deck can be resilient and be able to grind through all the control magic your opponent dishes out. If you want a deck that is versatile and resilient, Grist might be the commander for you. And now for the next archetype, Control. Control's goal is to make sure your opponent is playing on your terms. You're here for the long haul, so you want to make sure you slow down your opponents and find your opening to get that win. You're often not winning through aggression, but rather maximizing your resources while disrupting your opponent as much as possible. Atraxa Grand Unifier is one of the strongest control decks so far in Duel Commander. The goal of the deck is to stabilize in the early turns up until you cast your commander to refill your hand and take full control of the board and the game. The card quality of the deck is one of its best features. Being in 4 colors gives you a plethora of powerful cards to choose from, and if the deck is built right, you can consistently gain 4 to 5 cards from Atraxa's ETB every time. You can even push the limits by maximizing cards with multiple card types such as Baleful Strix. And let's not overlook her static abilities. Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink are all significant in their own way. If she resolves, you can easily pull yourself out of lethal damage range with just one swing. Other control commanders like Tivit or Aminatu cannot easily do. Stabilizing is one of the most important points in your games against aggro, so you have to do everything you can to get Atraxa out or clean up the board. If you're looking to play one of the best decks in the format right now, Atraxa might be the commander for you. Do you like losing friends? If you do, Tivit is the commander for you. Tivit is an Esper control commander, filled with counter spells, efficient removal, card advantage engines, and game-ending threats. Classic Esper. It's quite a slow and methodical way of playing Magic, as its entire game plan hinges on squeezing every inch of potential advantage you could get with your control spells. You plan to stall out the game to the point where you can cast Tivit and outgrind your opponent, all while beating them with a 6/6 flyer. Tivit's ETB of making treasures and or clues helps when it comes to getting what you need at the moment and potentially stabilizing enough to win the game from there. It is important to outgrind the hyper aggro decks as they want to overwhelm you as fast as possible before you can even stabilize with Tivit. Because if he hits the field, it is such an annoying commander to deal with due to its Ward 3 and flying. Having Tivit out can win you the game all by themselves. This deck heavily relies on your patience and the knowledge of what your meta is like. If you're someone who enjoys this kind of magic, of knowing how to beat any deck with some good old-fashioned control magic, then Tivit might be the commander for you. Do you ever wonder what it would feel like to have a counter spell in your command zone? Well, let me introduce you to Urtai Resurrected. Urtai is a Dimir commander who plays heavily in the controlling game as early as possible, draining your opponent's resources and pushing through with the win with your flashy creatures. Having a mode of a counterspell or removal on your commander is an effect that cannot be understated. But the drawback of giving your opponent a card is still a risk that you must be willing to take. But make sure you read Urtai very carefully, as his effect does not specify that the spells and triggers you're countering have to be controlled by your opponent. Urtai has a sneaky combo that practically wins you the game with Parallax Nexus and Parallax Tide. Both have a similar effect of having 5 counters, and you have the ability to remove one of those counters to either exile a land with Tide or a card in your opponent's hand with Nexus. During your upkeep, as the fading trigger enters the stack, you can cast Urtai to counter the triggered ability, nullifying the effect of having those cards return to your opponent's control. This practically locks out your opponent and sets them back to the point where it's nearly impossible for them to recover. This deck encourages you to really think hard about the actions you need to take to make sure you're controlling the game in your favor. Aggro can get out of hand due to its sheer amount of threats that it can dish out, and you can definitely be punished if you decide to take out the wrong one. If you like playing on your opponent's turn and making sure you have the ability to counter any threat your opponent dishes out, Urtai is perfect for you. Finally, let's talk about some other decks and commanders that fit into smaller niches in the dual commander meta. Combo's aim is to win the game through a specific combination or sequence of cards. These interactions usually involve the commander, but not necessarily. They require careful planning, knowledge of card interactions, and the ability to adapt to the opponent's attempts to disrupt your game plan. The Beamtown Bullies is a great example of having a combo piece in your command zone. They have an activated ability to gift an artifact from your grave and have it enter under their control. This may look unassuming at first, until you see the other piece of the combo. Leveler. Leveler has an ETB that removes your entire library from your game, or rather, your opponent's. Your deck is packed with effects that put Leveler straight from your library into your grave, or looting effects that help you pitch it if you have it on hand. Don't get tunnel vision though when it comes to this deck, because you do not live and die by this combo. You are playing a Jund value pile, playing the best Jund cards that let you play a strong mid-range or aggro game. Beamtown being a 4/4 haste, vigilant beater isn't half bad too. If you're looking for a straightforward combo plan, Reanimator is a very popular archetype in Duel Commander and has been a mainstay in the format due to its consistency and power. Its strategy is to put game-winning creatures directly into your grave and recur them back using your plethora of reanimation spells. This archetype thrives due to its sheer amount of redundancy when it comes to reanimation spells and looting effects. Aminatu, the Fate Shifter, is a very special case, as you could build her as a control commander or a reanimator commander. She is another cheap planeswalker who acts as your commander, and though unassuming, she has strong synergies with the reanimator archetype in particular. You would often see opening hands that don't have everything you need to pull off your reanimation plan. But your colors lend well to the abundance of looting and searching effects to let you get through your deck to get the exact combination of cards you need, as well as being able to dump the reanimation targets you want straight to the grave. You are of course susceptible to grave hate, but your deck is full of interaction, such as counter spells and hand attack, that ensure that you can pop off your reanimation spells without any fear. Once you have things set up, Aminatu's second loyalty ability proves how powerful she can be as your commander, allowing you to blink powerful ETBs after reanimating your game-winning creature from your grave, like Ashen Rider or Archon of Cruelty. This ability extends to when you want to build Aminatu in more of a control shell, as you could blink Oath of Kaya for your removal and life gain, Out of Time to constantly clean up the board, and even planeswalkers like the Fairy Time Raveler to get multiple activations from him. Enchantress is a very niche archetype in Duel Commander, but definitely nothing to scoff at. They often have strong synergies, and the card advantage they accumulate makes it hard for your opponents to catch up. Sithis is a great example of this. She is a 2-mana Celestia Enchantress, meaning you could drop her in the early turns and immediately start getting card advantage as you keep casting all of your enchantments. Drawing cards isn't your only game plan, as you have creatures that also grow with every enchantment you control, and these creatures can grow quickly or can come out of nowhere. So grinding out your opponent just by playing your deck shows how powerful this archetype can be. You can't talk about Enchantress without talking about some sort of luck. The 9 lives Solemnity combo fits well in this deck. 9 lives says damage dealt to you is prevented in exchange for having a counter placed on 9 lives. If you reach 9 counters, you lose the game. However, if you have Solemnity out, you can't place those counters on 9 lives if you get damaged, practically locking your opponent out against their aggro plan. Though you have to put a lot of effort into putting these combos together, and control may be a big bother to you, this deck is packed full of fun synergies that could make any Enchantress player feel right at home. If you ever wanted to try a Voltron commander in DC, Lightpaw's Emperor's Voice is the perfect commander for you. Lightpaws is an Aura's enchantment deck that focuses on loading her up with cheap and unassuming auras and triggering her ability to search your deck for another aura with mana value equal or less than the aura you enchanted her with. This can snowball very quickly if she is not answered immediately. This deck is practically a toolbox, as you're able to search up the appropriate protection aura that counters your opponent's color identity, evasion so you can make sure your attacks are guaranteed, and the stabilizer, as you could search your deck for lifelink effects like Daybreak Coronet to make sure your life total is not in any threat. You often hit hard with this deck, as it's loaded with buffing auras, so it's easy to get wins if your opponents are not prepared. Like with any Voltron strategies, you run the risk of getting blown out by removal, so just make sure you are ready with all your interactions so you can confidently swing big with Lightpaws. I hope this video gives you a great starting point to pick out the perfect commander for you to play in Duel Commander. There are so many new legends coming out and old commanders getting their time to shine, so always keep an eye out on the meta and see what more commanders fit your playstyle better. We highly encourage you to encourage other people and your local game store to try out Duel Commander. Duel Commander is such a live and flourishing format that we're all excited for you to try. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and turn on the notification bell so you can see even more Duel Commander content from us. Also be sure to follow the Duel Commander website for updates on the format and ban list announcements. All will be linked below. Finally, don't forget to support your local game stores, make new friends, and always have fun. Thank you so much for watching us here in the Duel Commander PH channel, and I hope you stick around for more content coming up. Take care and see you in the next video.